power does not lie in the mind, power lies in battling the mind. Because when we realize that our ego limits us, and that by connecting to our true nature, the infinity that is within us, that is larger than us and also within us, that's how we become our best selves.
Welcome back to Inspire Change with Jordan Mulligan, and today I have an amazing episode with Gurratan Singh. We talk about loads of different things, but one of the most interesting parts of this whole conversation is around Sikh philosophy. So many people don't understand that Sikhism and the philosophy that surrounds the religion and the faith is absolutely amazing. It aligns so well with some of the philosophies that we've spoken about on the channel many times. We talk about different warriors throughout history and how you can apply their teachings and their philosophy into your modern day life. Honestly, take out your pen, take out your paper, because the notes you learn from this and the knowledge and wisdom that you take from this is really, really valuable. Today's video was sponsored by Huel, a quick, affordable, nutritionally complete source of food with everything that your body needs. Use code 10Mulligan for $10 or £10 off your first order with the link down below. That's 10Mulligan. I'll talk about this a little bit later in the video. But before that, here is my good friend Gurratan Singh, who has spoken about philosophy, been involved in politics, and if you follow him on social media, is known for his amazing cold bath videos where he drops a lot of knowledge and wisdom. Let's dive into the video. For those who don't know, just introduce yourself and what you do.
My name is Gurratan Singh. I'm a lawyer. I'm a past member of provincial parliament, and I'm someone who believes in building resilience and grit within ourselves. And I'm excited to be sharing this conversation with Jordan today.
So yeah, where I usually dive into is sort of your background. I mean, if you was to give a brief overview of that, just up until the point of where the really interesting part for me that I would like to cover is where you moved out with your brother. But the bit in between, like, could you just go through, explain it to someone like a British viewer or somebody who had not experienced that life or the area that you grew up in?
So I was born on an island off the coast of mainland Canada. It's called Newfoundland. And it's a beautiful, rugged land and area. And my father was doing his residency there, and that's where I was born. And shortly afterwards, we moved to Windsor, Ontario. And it's a smaller city in the context of Canada, in the context of Ontario, I should say. And that's where I grew up for the vast majority of my younger years until I was about 16. And it was a time of a lot of joy, but it was a difficult time as well. As I shared in the past, and my brother shared as well, my father struggled with a lot of addiction, mainly with alcoholism. And so as a young person, seeing your father struggle with that addiction, that sickness, not really knowing the impact of that sickness, how it is a sickness, you struggle with these ideas when you're young. It was definitely a tough, there's components of growing up that were really tough because of that.
My family, on my father's side, alcoholism's like rife. Like a lot of our family members have died from it, like uncles and my grandma. How did it? What as a child looking out? I mean, and growing into an adult, like what kind of perspectives has it given you? Like, has it taught you any lessons? Has it changed anything for yourself?
It definitely has, and I think it's one of those things that in the moment when you're seeing your parents suffering from an addiction, you think it's as easy as telling them to stop. And when you get older and you get that perspective and you learn about how vicious of a disease it is, you realize that they were suffering. So at a time when you're young and you're looking backwards, at that moment when you're young, you think your father's being selfish or mean or all these things. And obviously it presents in those ways. But as I'm older and I look back, I realize he was just suffering. And so I think seeing my father suffer in that way has opened my eyes and made me a bit more empathetic to how the condition that we experience can impact us in so many different ways. And often when people lash out in negative ways, it usually is born out of trauma that they're dealing with.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So, I mean, the gap that in between that we're talking about is because of your father's addiction at the time, you felt that you needed to move out to your brother. Was that situation forced, or was it a decision as a 16-year-old?
I was 15 at the time, I believe, yeah.
Was it a decision that you took into your own hands?
It was a family decision. My brother has always been someone who has been so deeply committed to our family and has always looked out for me. Like we jokingly stay together. He was like a father for me, actually, very much until recently, right? Into the 20s, and he turned into a brother. But in those younger years, he was very much a father figure to me. And we just saw how badly my father was suffering. And we spoke as a family, and he took it on himself to say, come, leave Windsor, come to London, Ontario, a city, 2 hours away, where he was studying in university. He was in third year university at the time. And he said, come and live with me, and I'll take care of you, and we'll go from there.
And what was that experience like, living with your brother?
It was quite possibly some of the best years of my life. Leaving a situation that was really stressful and anxious when you have my father's really struggling with alcoholism. He was someone he suffered a lot from it. He's hospitalized because of it. So it was a really bad sickness that he was struggling with. Leaving that environment and being with my brother as my primary guardian or caregiver, who was like exhibited all the healthiest habits you could think of, right? Someone who's like working out all the time and active in his community and active in student life and studying hard. So like it was such a huge change, and it was so transformative for me. Immediately, like being a young person who was maybe feeling some anxiety at the time and some stress, it was like all lifted off. And I had like these 3 years of so much joy and happiness, and my brother helped facilitate that.
And then from that point on, could you fill in as well how both of you decided to go into politics? How did you get to that point where both of you were into politics?
So it's an interesting story, and it's something we share a lot. So it was in 2011 where this was all happening. And at that time, there's a lot of sentiment in the community that we didn't have elected officials who were really representing the needs of our community. And so myself and a bunch of other younger folks, we hadn't been incredibly politically active. We weren't really politically involved that much, but we saw a need for better representation. So we actually encouraged my brother to run for politics. And I was actually a bit of like, my friend and I, and my friend was kind of the good cop and I was the bad cop. And he was encouraging him, and I was a little bit like, Jimmy, you got to do this. The community needs you. And, I took sometimes a bit of a hard push, if you will, to encourage him. And that's what got him into the political arena. He ran his first time. He lost by a slim margin, and then he won his next election. And then that just started this really meteoric, rise in politics, where he went from being a provincial elected official to now leader of a federal party. And when he got elected in 2017 as a party leader, he then encouraged me to run as well. And so in 2018, I ran. I was successful, and the rest is history.
So yeah, you've both had to deal with quite a lot of adversities as well, stepping into that space. Like, could you go through some of those?
Elected office is it's an amazing space. It's a place where you get to really give back. You get to understand and learn from what the community is facing, and then you get to communicate and fight for the community in that way. And it's a place it's truly a service, and it's a beautiful way of service. And I guess the biggest learning aspect you take from it is how important it is to get involved in like your political systems and the impact, how it impacts everything we face, right? From the roads we drive on, to the hospitals we go to the schools we attend. Politics is something that impacts every single thing that we deal with. So if you're not active in these systems, then you're not active in the direction of your society. And so I think that's probably some of the larger takeaways I took from it.
So when we spoke earlier, we're talking about putting yourself in a position to help others. I can't remember the actual terminology we used. It wasn't to help others. It was to be a service of others, fight injustices. That's the one I wanted to speak about. Where does your beliefs around fighting injustices stem from?
So as I've shared in the past, and I've spoken a lot about in the past, the greatest belief of, I think, fighting injustice is rooted in this idea that we're all one. They're all connected. And as Sikhs, this is a huge fundamental aspect of our spirituality, that we're all connected. Even as we speak right now, this barrier that we view as an illusion, right? We're one with one another. We're one with the earth, with nature, with everything, with all reality. And because we're all one, injustices that others face are in fact injustices that we face. Destruction of the environment is destruction that we're facing. We're all connected, we're all one. And so the root of that belief, trying to understand and experience this oneness further, is something that encourages all Sikhs to, and I think all people, frankly, to fight injustice. And I think that's a root motivator for so many people.
So when we speak about fighting injustices, there was a word that you'd used a few days ago that was it was almost like the fighter in the garden. It was like not the fighter in the garden. It was almost like there's a teaching in Shaolin that is the demon hand Buddha heart. So to be able to have the capability to be able to be lethal, but to do it in the context of a kind place, like a place of being like good morals. In Sikhism, there is a teaching, right, or a principle that exists around that. Could you go through that with us?
As Sikhs, a state that we aspire to become is a state called Sant Sipahi, which means the spiritual warrior. And the idea is that if we're all one, if we're all connected, the thing that is preventing us from realizing that we're all one and connected is the ego. So we need to go to war and battle against our ego. But the consequence of battling our ego is further understanding that we're all one. And if we're all one, then injustice to others is injustice that we all face. So then you need to be a physical warrior. So if you are a spiritual warrior, if you're a Sant Sipahi, you're someone who is both focused on growing and fostering yourself spiritually, along with having the capabilities and the ability to fight and defend others physically in the world that we exist in.
Personally, have you experienced situations where you've had to be that person?
I think when we talk about what it means to fight injustice, it is connected in so many different ways, right? And it's not just standing up and fighting against someone who's spreading, vile racist and hatred. A circumstance that we had discussed earlier when I was at an event speaking in support of a community, and I was faced with someone who just wanted to spew hate and hatred, and in that moment I wanted to condemn that hate. That is a direct way of condemning injustice. That's a direct way of fighting that I've experienced. But when we talk about how we can truly fight injustice, is I think build a society where people have access to the things they need to live their best lives, right? And that's why it's so important that when we talk about building fighting injustice isn't just the direct opposition to the injustice that we face, but looking how we build a society where people have what they need to live their best lives.
I love it. So yeah, so some of the philosophies in Sikhism, like providing food for people, having open, like all of that, where does that stem from and what does it lead to?
So the idea is effectively this. If we're all one and we have this experience that we're further trying to connect and realize and experience this oneness, the hunger that others face, the lack of access to resources that others face, that is something that impacts us. And we are almost compelled spiritually. We're mandated, but also it's kind of like, if we're all one, your pain is my pain. And in that sense, then we develop this culture as Sikhs where we try to provide for people in every way possible. And one of those ways is at every Sikh spiritual institution, there is a thing called langar. And langar is this open, free community kitchen, which everyone is meant to go there. Everyone's meant to eat on the ground as equals, irrespective of how much money you make or irrespective of anything. You sit together in that space as equals and you break bread and you share with one another. And it's a physical way of demonstrating our oneness, because in that moment, we're all eating the same meal, we're all sitting with one another, and then you receive the purpose of langar is that you eat, but then you also serve others. So you have that exchange with one another. And that's one way in which this belief of oneness is manifested as a community.
The self-belief of you and your brother to go from not really involved in politics to think that you could achieve these high levels that you've achieved, where does that stem from?
I think a lot of it comes from the idea that, especially with my brother, because I'm no longer in politics now. It's my brother who's someone who's continuing to fight in such an amazing way. And I think what it is and where it stems from more than anything, it comes back to this idea that we have to build that better world, that better society. And knowing the impact that being in government has on folks. So in the fact that, that's how we are able to provide resources, provide support, make healthcare better, make, education better, make sure people have resources that are more accessible. And I think it's just understanding that politics is a great way. If you have good policies and good leadership in politics, you can do a lot of good. You can build, and you can really help build a better society.
Something that we've spoken about before on the channel is that you need to look after yourself first to be able to help others. You need to be in a position where you can help others. From a Sikh perspective, how does that look? Like, I know we've spoken about some of the philosophies around that. Could you explain that to us?
So there's this really strong culture of resilience in the Sikh community. And there's this really, it's embedded in the fact that since our inception, Sikhs have faced so much injustice, so many obstacles. They face so much hardship. And in response to this hardship, we've always responded by creating this culture of resilience. We've always pushed back and really dug in and said that we can persevere, we can fight back. And I think from this culture of resilience, when you really believe in your mind, and beyond your mind, when you're connected to a source, our true nature, that oneness that we all share, that motivates us to do great things. It motivates us to be able to oppose injustice, irrespective of how daunting that task is. It gives us the motivation to fight against tyranny. It's born out of this oneness. That's something that I think really is a motivation for everything with regards to our culture of resilience as Sikhs.
If we were to remove the oneness, and I'm talking from a perspective of outside the religion, but if you was to remove the oneness, why would you help others?
Yeah, and I would push back and say you can't remove that oneness, right? Because that's what everything's predicated upon, right? It is a sense that helping others and the idea behind that responsibility that we have, it's something that is born out of this connection that we share. And the way I reflect on this idea is that the goal of us Sikhs spiritually is to realize that our ego is a barrier. So the motivations of our ego, or the motivations that we have day to day, are ego motivated. And those are something that hold us back. They limit us because the ego by nature is a limiting thing. Our true nature is infinite. That oneness is infinite. And if we can connect to that, then we realize the responsibility we have to not just the bodies that we live within, but everything that we're connected to.
So someone outside of Sikhism who doesn't have that feel for responsibility, how would you explain to them? How would you talk to them to feel not responsible, but to want to help other people?
I would say that whether you agree or not that we're all connected, the reality is that we live in a society together. We live in a place that's interconnected. We live day to day in a place where we share space with one another. We drive on the same roads. We walk on the same sidewalks. We are, maybe if someone disagrees with the spiritual connection, then we're actually connected. We live on this earth together. And if we truly want to uplift, even if we want to have a better life ourselves, I think when we lift others up, we all rise, is kind of idea behind it. So I would say to that individual that understand that the actions that you partake upon are going to have impact, and the actions of others are going to affect you. And if that is, in fact, the reality, then you have an obligation then in that sense to help one another to make sure that we all rise together.
That connection as well is, I personally feel that connection as well is born out of, again, something we spoke about earlier, we all bleed the same, we all bleed blood. There is nobody who's, like you said, milk or gold or, there is nothing. We all bleed blood, we're all human. Again, in Sikhism, is like being connected to people outside of the religion, other people. Like, is that something that is accepted, promoted?
Oh, very much so. So like, as Sikhs, we very much have this belief that we're connected to all humanity, and that all humanity is something that we have a responsibility to. Every single day, Sikhs will end their morning spiritual routine or their evening spiritual routine or any sort of spiritual gathering is ended with the final line is a calling for Sarbat Lapala, which means for the upliftment of all humanity, not just Sikhs, but all humanity. And that is something that, because this oneness is not, I'm not just one with other Sikhs. I'm one with you. I'm one with everyone. I'm one with someone who is diametrically opposed to my belief system or to who I am. We still share that oneness. So we still ask for the upliftment of all people. There's a beautiful, this is historical. And our 10th spiritual guru, when he would go to battle, he would have gold on his arrows. And the reason why he had gold on his arrows is because even when he battled those who were spreading injustice and standing up against tyranny, he still saw the oneness he shared with those. And he wanted those individuals who fell from those arrows, their families, to have the resources to continue on. He still shared that love with that individual. He fought tyranny. He fought injustice. But this was an individual who was one with the divine, was divine, and understood the interconnectedness of all of us. These are stories that we hear as Sikhs growing up. And there's in history, these are facts. These are the occurrences that occurred. Bhai Kanhaiya is an individual who was in the service of our 10th spiritual guru, and he was found to be giving medicines after a battle to both the injured Sikhs and the opponents, the individuals who were the Sikhs were in conflict with. And he was then brought to the court of our 10th guru, and other Sikh soldiers were angry, saying, why is he taking care of our enemies? And Guru Gobind Singh Ji said, this is the oneness that he is exemplifying. And he gave him more medicine, gave him more resources to serve and help anyone who's injured. That is the spirit in which a Sikh is supposed to approach this world, by seeing this oneness and acting in a manner where we can still fight injustice, but even in those that we're standing against, we see that shared oneness.
The perception, I think, of Sikhs, for at least in the UK, is very peaceful, accepting, loving people. But the history, there is a lot of war and fighting injustices. I'd love to go through some of that with you. I mean, because it's quite a new religion in the context to some other religions, the history is quite recent as well.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear some of it. There's specifically one of the ones I would love to hear about is that saying, and I can't remember the number, but is it one Sikh is
Slavalak, yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So just to give some context, the Sikh spirituality is something that fosters and develops this belief of oneness, that we're all connected. And in that connection, you realize that the infinite is within us, right? Like within us is that which is larger than us, but also within us. The infinity is within us, is what we believe, right? The universe we are a part of the universe. We are seeking that oneness. And when you start tapping into that, you realize there's so much internal strength that exists within us. Everything we need is within us. And so when Sikhs start to face all this adversity, that helped shape this culture of resilience. And a lot of this culture of resilience was developed in response to the adversity that we face. So our 10th guru, when he created the order of the Khalsa, when he started codifying us as a nation, as a people, the 10th guru said he would make one Sikh be able to battle 125,000. And in history, we've seen time and again occurrences where this mentality came out in real life, right? There's a battle of Saragadi where we had, I believe it was 21 Sikhs against thousands of attackers, and they held out, they fought to the last individual, and they fought incredibly with so much bravery. It's a battle that is still honored to this day. And we see it time and time again. And the idea is that, imagine you take this concept of having the ability to battle 125,000, you apply it to other areas of your life. You had the creativity, the output, the energy of 125,000 others. That's the goal, right? That's when you tap into infinity, which is within us, then you are able to have exponential ability. You can have exponential output. You can have exponential the ability to help and serve others. So this is the mindset that we start to foster as Sikhs when we tap into this culture of resilience.
When you look at the science as well, this is something, I think it was, was it Neil deGrasse Tyson? He was saying that literally, quite literally, within us is the exploding stars from the universe. Like it's quite factual, like what you're saying. Like the universe is within us. But as you're saying that, to me, that gives me a sense of empowerment. You know, to be connected to everything. Is there any more philosophies around it? Like I know I'm like trying to that for me I think could be such a powerful tool for so many people.
There's so many ideas. So like when we talk the Sikh culture of resilience, there's so many different ideas that can be shared to help, I think, people across the world today. So what happened is that there's a period in which Sikhs were facing extreme persecution, and there was literally campaigns to eliminate Sikhs, and Sikhs were living this time surviving in the jungles with very little food, very little access to homes and shelter and everything. And they're facing, like, there was a price upon the head of Sikh. So if you provided a head of a Sikh, you would get rewarded. And in that time, Sikhs really started to develop this culture of resilience, and it was codified into a language called Khalsai Bodle. And in this language, everything that they experienced would be reframed in a positive perspective. When a Sikh would see another Sikh, irrespective of how daunting or tough times they were facing, when asked how you're doing, a Sikh would respond by saying, I'm in Chardi Kala. Chardi Kala is this really powerful idea, which means having rising spirits in the face of adversity. So not just having rising spirits because it's a beautiful day and you're having a great time, but having rising spirits in the face of tumultuous, tough times. And that creates this mentality that irrespective of what you're going, I still have rising spirits. You can't break me. To this day, when a Sikh is asked how you're doing, it's very appropriate. You'll hear Sikhs to this day say, Chardi Kala. They might be facing tough situations, but they're fostering this mentality that my spirit cannot be broken. It's going to rise exponentially in the face of the tough times that I face. You would hear these ideas like they would see a Sikh who had one eye, and they would say that, and they would name that individual someone who had the sight of 100,000. They would see a Sikh who was blind, and they would say, this Sikh is brave, Surma, he's a brave warrior, they would call them. They were so grateful for every little bit of food that they would eat. So they would call a sip of milk would be called drinking the ocean, or eating raw chickpeas, they would call something, royal, like, in Punjab, the context, the association of almonds is something which is very, this is very rich food. So they would call meager food something really expensive and opulent and decadent. And they created this cultural resilience that continues to this day, where Sikhs continue to look at tough times, or should look at tough times, with this positive outlook.
I absolutely love that. That is I was getting chills with the Chardi Kala.
Chardi Kala, man. Chardi Kala is something that to this day, and this is something I think the world can really share from, like looking, and it's rooted. What is it rooted in? It's rooted in this idea that we're all one, we're all connected, right? And if you have that infinity within you, then you're capable of anything, and you can overcome anything. And more than that, you're in a position to help others overcome what they're facing. Because everything, like, I've said this in our conversations, and it's something I want to share as well today, that what is the purpose of being good if we're not helping those around us? What is the purpose of being strong and motivated if we're not using those skill sets to lift up those around us? So everything ties back to that.
For yourself, have you used that concept in tough times?
When I experienced those tough times growing up, when I was facing, seeing my father suffer with this really terrible sickness, this is something that as a family we'd remember. This is a family would remind ourselves. This is something my brother would remind me of, and my brother, who was inspired by our mother, and who inspires me as well. Right? This is something that would be shared amongst us, that and we can overcome these tough times, because as a people we've overcome so much.
In that moment though, what does that look like? You're seeing someone you dearly love, like your father, in a terrible situation.
and that's right away. That's super difficult, extremely hard to navigate, especially as a child. When your brother comes in to remind you of this, does it uplift you straight away? Does it take you a while to settle in? Like, how does that work?
I think it's one of the things. It's like every time it's mentioned, right? It reminds you, and in one moment, maybe it's something that it doesn't hit you. You don't have the impact, but it builds, right? It's like that reservoir that keeps on building, because that's when you have this daily practice, or you have this continual response to a negative aspect, that gives that internal strength continually, bit by bit by bit. And I think it's something that really now, in this time of my life, it has its greatest impact. Where I look back at my life and I don't feel like bitter or angry or mad at my father. I have a great relationship with my father now. And I think it's born out of the fact that we were able to maintain that positive outlook and say, what is the reframing of that experience? It's not that my father was angry or wanted to put us through terrible times. He was suffering. And now in a mature state, I'm able to look back and say, yes, I recognize that those are experiences that I faced, not because I was facing someone who was malicious or angry or evil-minded. It was someone who was suffering. And the reality is that when he was suffering, that suffering impacted us all.
One of the other Mulligan brothers, William, he runs a Stoic philosophy. He's into Stoic philosophy massively, but he runs a Stoic page. And he would not forgive me if I didn't ask sort of the idea of acceptance of death within Sikhism.
Yeah, this is a really important part of the Sikh spirituality, which it's not even just acceptance of death, but conquering the fear of death, I think, is a big part of how we as Sikhs try to develop spiritually. Because the reality is that death is something that we're all going to face, right? This is the one thing that you can be sure of when you live, is that this journey is going to end. And this cult of resilience is something that Sikhs who are facing all this really tough times understood how close death was. They lived a life where death could be a breath away. And they start to even reframe, inspired, of course, by the Sikh spirituality, but they would start saying that, when someone died, they're continuing their journey. They would look at death as a next step in our journey, that they're on to the next stage, that death was something that was always close. But when you really connect spiritually and understand that infinity is within us, a Sikh who understands that and experiences that realizes that too is an illusion. That's the ultimate spiritual goal of a Sikh, realizing that this living and dying that occurs is all but a game. It's all but a play. And the truth is that we're timeless. When we define the oneness that I keep on talking about in our conversation, it is defined as something that is timeless, that is something that is epitomized by always being present. When Sikhs greet each other, we have a variety of greetings, but one of them is Sat Sri Akal. And Sat Sri Akal means truth is that which is timeless. Truth is timeless, and that's something that we're trying to connect ourselves to.
I hope you're enjoying this episode so far. Today's video was powered by Huel, a quick, affordable, nutritionally complete source of food with everything that your body needs. I've been using these guys for the past 2 years because when I'm on a busy road trip and I'm making these documentaries, to be able to reach into my bag and have something with all the nutrients, vitamins, minerals, the protein, the energy that I need whilst I'm on the go has been an absolute game changer. The amount of time that I have saved just replacing one of my meals with this as well has been unbelievable. So if you want to find out more about Huel, I really do recommend clicking the link down below. Check out the black edition. It's my favorite product of all. It's got extra protein in it for those gains, and use code 10Mulligan for a discount. You can get $10 or £10 off using the link in the description with code 10Mulligan. Let's dive back into the episode.
So for me, I in my life, I've experienced how precious life is. It can be gone in such a quick moment. And then when I look towards the science as well, the idea that we are here, personally, me or you, is like stacked up so against us that life is so precious. how important is it to understand that? How important is it to understand the preciousness of life? Is that something that's taught us in Sikhism?
Something that's repeated so much again in the Sikh spirituality, time and time again, is the preciousness of life and the closeness of death. And how we live, like, so much of our life is, it's easy to get engrossed and blinded by this play of life and the material world, and running from one desire to another desire to another desire, and never living in the moment. And the Sikh spirituality is in response to that kind of lifestyle, to reorientate an individual and say, live in this moment, connect to the now, connect to one another. If we battle the ego, if a big part of the Sikh spirituality is fighting the ego, we have to understand how does the ego exist, right? The ego is something that is born out of our deeds of the past, and is something that is fueled by our desires of the future. So in the moment, in the now, when we truly embrace this now, that's a moment, I think, that is beyond the ego. That is a moment, and that we supersede that chain of the ego. And meditation for Sikhs, reflecting on the teachings of our gurus, the spiritual scripture, our guru, the Gurratan Singh, reading and reflecting and absorbing this knowledge and meditating. This is how we connect deeper with oneness, and this is how we fight the ego.
So the first idea is that life is a struggle.
There's a really deep idea in the Sikh spirituality of the importance of the struggle, of jujna. And the idea is that there is a spiritual writing from our 10th guru, and it ends by saying, in the might of battle, may I die struggling. Not victorious, but struggling, because the victory is in the struggle. That's how we win. We can't control the outcome of our actions, but we can control the effort that we put into it. And so life is a struggle, and understanding that every day when we show up and we fight, when we fight our ego, when we fight injustice in this world, when we fight our lower self, that is how we are in fact being victorious. And it's finding joy in that struggle. It's finding Chardikala in that struggle. Rising spirits in the face of whatever struggle that we're facing. And that's how we truly find victory.
So a lot of the concepts we've been speaking about throughout this whole conversation, I have drawn some kind of similarities through beliefs that we have, not through religion, just through me and my brothers, like as a family. And smiling in adversity is like a huge thing for us, like
really?
Yeah, massively. Yeah. So we always feel the tougher it gets, the bigger the grin should be. You know, the more there is a reason to smile as the struggle gets harder. We always feel that there's a higher purpose to it, whether it's to teach us a lesson or maybe that wasn't our path that we were supposed to be going on. But we always feel that. So I love to hear you articulate them in such a way. I still feel it's a very hard concept to explain to somebody who is facing adversity, who maybe hasn't got Sikhism or hasn't developed a concept like that. How do you talk to people who maybe are in that moment of adversity and difficulty, and to tell them to be positive in that moment? A very difficult conversation to have.
It's such a difficult conversation to have, but I think what is the root of the answer is actually in saying, when I think of falling in love with the struggle, or embracing this idea of finding joy in the process, it's saying that as you face adversity, it's like a hammer beating down on a sword, right? It is making you stronger. It is building you. It is folding that steel upon steel. It's like the stone across the blade, making you sharper. Anytime I faced tough times growing up, my brother would always remind me that tough times builds character. And that was something that really, I think, gave me a lot of strength, and reminded me that it's the heights of joy and also the depths of sorrow that we face that shape us and create who we are. And he would remind me of that often. And to this day, it is something that it reminds me whenever I face a tough time that is helping me develop as an individual.
Yeah, and like a friend of ours, Inky Johnson, he's a motivational speaker, and he had a tragic. He was about to go. He was drafted, I think, for the NFL, and he got tackled just before. It was a last season game, I think, in college, and it paralyzed him, and he lost the use of his arm.
Oh my God!
And he was like, next big thing in the NFL, and he always used to say, like, he knew that there was a reason for it. He knew there was a higher purpose for it, and his saying was that once you have been through adversity and you've grown from that adversity, you reach back over the hill and you help somebody else through adversity. But it's only through experiencing that tough situation do you have the knowledge and the right things to be able to go and help that person, which we spoke about earlier again. There's quite a few things that through tough times can be that silver lining. It's almost tough to talk about, because I think some people look at you and think that's ridiculous. Like, losing a loved one, how can that be good for me? How can that be helpful? But yeah, I love the way you've articulated that.
It's tied into the Sikh belief of Dukh Daru. And what Dukh Daru means is that pain is medicine. And if you look at our lives, how many lessons have we learned through painful times? How much has pain been a motivator for us to be better, to let go of bad habits, to develop as an individual? If we look at pain as medicine, then we see that it can be something that corrects bad things within us. Weaker aspects of our ego, or aspects of ourselves that are not aspiring to that higher true nature within us. So looking at Dukh Daru as pain as medicine is something that can help us understand why there's joy in the struggle, because in that process of pain, you're actually learning, you are growing, and you're developing.
That's back to that building resilience again as well. The pain is medicine. I know that it's very hard to put yourself through painful times. Life happens, life's tough, and everybody at some point in life will receive some kind of hardship or lesson through a difficult time. But on the day-to-day basis, putting yourself through hardships, putting yourself through even discipline, things that are difficult to do, is one, I don't think practiced enough by most people, but two, doesn't come as close to what life can offer, in my opinion. I don't think so. But I would love to talk about, just briefly, before this we did the cold plunge in the backyard. There's things like that in life as well. Are you using those tools to build resilience? Are you using those tools as a benefit outside of jumping into cold water to get a rush or whatever? Is there something else to it?
Totally. And I think it ties into this idea within the Sikh spirituality, the Sikh culture, of being tiyar ba tiyar, being always and ever ready, being in a state of perpetual preparedness. And when we are in a state of perpetual preparedness, you can only be ready for tough times when you put yourself through tough times every single day. And that's how you make sure you're ready for whatever life throws at you. And so I always understood that, to make sure that we are preparing ourselves every day, physically, mentally, emotionally, and most importantly, spiritually. Because when you have that resolve and you have that strength, that's something internally, when you're connecting to your true nature, then you can overcome anything in your path. So things like working out, things like doing cold and heat exposure, those are difficult. But the hardest thing to do every single day is to battle your ego, to go to war with your ego, through sitting down and meditating and reflecting and seeing how we can grow and improve ourselves, how we can delve deeper into this oneness that connects us all, how we can forget ourselves, lose ourselves to this infinity within. That is, I think, is the harder and tougher and deeper battle that we must engage with.
And then this, again, Sikh should be ever ready, but victorious in every battlefield, I think plays to that as well. What does that mean?
So there's this idea within the Sikh culture of resilience of Har Maidan Fateh, which means to literally be victorious in every single battlefield. And to be victorious in every single battlefield is to say that in every aspect of life, physically, emotionally, intellectually, socially, how are we seeking that victory? And to me, that means when we get into a fight with someone we love, making sure we're winning the battle with our ego, to make sure that we're resolving it in a way that fosters love and peace and not our own ego, right? Har Maidan Fateh in a state of building a better society is working to make sure people have access to the resources they need to live their best lives. Harmadan Fateh in an intellectual context is making sure that we're engaging and learning and growing and developing ourselves in a mental sense. So it's looking at every aspect of our lives and saying, how can we be the best of our ability? And it all ties in, right? When you are seeking victory in every aspect of your life, then you're perpetually ready for whatever life has to throw at you. You're in a state of perpetual preparedness. And you do that by fostering Chardikla, by having this rising spirit in the face of whatever life throws at you. So all these ideas build upon each other, and they help create and develop this culture of resilience that has helped Sikhs overcome some of the toughest times.
And then this concept, I mean, we've spoken about this on the YouTube channel many times. And I really think in a sense of like, this is maybe coming from the wrong angle, I'm not too sure, but from a sense of like business, entrepreneurship, even to be great in a sport or even just be a great person, I guess, is like to surround yourself with the right people. And so the Sikh, well, this is paraphrasing, so I'm probably getting this wrong, but be careful of who we surround ourselves with.
Well, it's more of like, it's kind of the other angle, right? It's like a positive framing of it.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
Frame that.
Yeah, but the positive frame is it's how important our sangat is, how important it is that we surround ourselves with good sangat. Sangat is our community, and we begin to reflect our community. And beyond that, a really amazing individual can help uplift another community. So the idea is that our sangat, we become reflective of those we surround ourselves with. So be mindful, be careful, be cautious of who you surround yourself with. And more than that, instead of taking a kind of a negative approach to it, seek those individuals who hope to aspire to the same things, who are looking to connect to that oneness, who are looking to fight injustice, who are looking to help those who are in need, who are looking to build a better and brighter future and world. Connect to those individuals and build a community that can then help serve others. Simran and Seva are the two pillars of the Sikh spirituality in many ways. And Simran is when we look at how we can understand and connect to this oneness that we're all connected by. And it's adopting a we perspective. We're all connected, as opposed to the ego, which is so focused on me, the I, the self. And when we engage in meditation, we're getting closer and to experiencing and adopting and realizing this interconnectedness. At the same time, though, we must partake in seva, which is selfless service towards others. And it's that connection, right? By saying that if we are all one, then we have to do seva. We have to uplift humanity. We have to uplift one another. And we do that by serving humanity, by lifting up those around us. And that is a way in which we can really, truly battle the ego.
Why the service of, I guess it's the connectedness, but the service of others. Like, one of the most, for me, stepping into your home, and it can be quite daunting, especially when we're talking about the idea of religion. Like, I might say the wrong thing, but completely felt comfortable at the moment you said that Sikhs accept everybody as brother. Is that what you said? Or basically, there's an acceptance of everybody. It's not and I felt that straight away. And why is that? What is the? Is it just straight back to the oneness with everybody?
So in the Sikh spirituality, there's a really strong belief in recognizing that there's diversity in this world. And we recognize that this diversity must be protected. This is diversity of opinion, of belief, of different ways of looking at this world. And time again in our Sikh history, in the actions of our Sikh gurus, we have seen the Sikh gurus and Sikhs as a whole stand up and fight for those who are facing oppression and in defense of that diversity. Because I truly believe it is rooted in this idea of oneness and the opposition of oppression, that no individual should face injustice or face oppression because of that difference in belief. And that's something that you'll see time and time again in our Sikh tradition.
One of the questions I ask most of our guests is, and I know you've covered this before, is your morning routine. It's like what you go for on a morning routine. I'd love to hear it. I don't know if the cold therapy is involved in that, but yeah, I'd love to know.
I'll share the Sikh morning routine, which is something I've written in the past about. And I think it's an amazing morning routine that really is something that, you're taught from a young age, that this is a morning routine that will help you not just conquer the day, but conquer your ego. And it starts first by waking at a time we call Amrit Vela, the ambrosial hours. This is waking up before the sun rises. It's a time of quiet. It's a time where you can work on spiritually armoring yourself before you then work to uplift others. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it is called Ishnan. And Ishnan is the sense that we have to prepare ourselves physically and mentally and spiritually. And one of the ways to do that is by getting ready. We believe in bathing ourselves as a way to start the day. And often many Sikh tradition include cold showers or cold therapy. There's something that there's a tradition of that as Sikhs. And that's why we need to prepare ourselves. We need to get this process started of getting ready for the day, which is led by meditation, Simran. And this is such an important way of connecting to our true nature, to that fact that we're all connected, to looking at how we can foster this we thinking, as opposed to the selfish, egotistical me thinking of the ego. That's how we start going to battle. You start that day with going to battle with your ego. And it's then followed with Nityanem, which is Sikhs reading the transformational love and positivity of the teachings of our gurus, of the Gurratan Singh, of Gurbani, of the spiritual scripture and guru of Sikhs. And when we read this, it's giving us so much spiritual strength and the ability to reflect and motivate and find the strength that we need to really take on that day. And then we end off with an ardas, which is an appeal to this oneness, to this connection, to strengthen our weaknesses, to uplift all humanity, and to really set our intention for that day. And then once we complete that process, we then start our day. That's a Sikh morning routine that I think we can all benefit from, and it's something that has helped Sikhs. Really, I think the strength of our lives, the strength of our practice can be found in the strength of that morning routine.
That's an amazing foundation for a day. So
It's a way to start the day then.
yeah, but what about when it's winter months in Canada? Like getting up early, beating the sun, it might be quite difficult.
Yeah. It's a tough process, right? And there's ups and downs in it, but this is a Sikh routine that is encouraged, and I think it's a beautiful thing. That if you can get it down pat, it's something that I think is just such a powerful way to ground yourself and start the day.
Leaders are the ones who serve, not the sort of the other way around. A lot of people think as leaders are just in charge and we listen to what they've got to say.
And so there's this really beautiful concept in the Sikh spirituality, in the Sikh tradition, of we call leaders sevadars. And sevadar is one who serves. And this is a form of leadership, is to say that true leadership isn't just telling people what to do, but true leadership is lifting up those around us. When we put those around us in the position to be their best selves, that's how we actually are able to create the best form of leadership for the community, for the group. And this is something that we as Sikhs really hope to aspire and exemplify when we come together.
What are some qualities of Sikhs that could be applicable to people's lives today, that could be helpful and that you find valuable?
So as we go down this process of trying to understand and experience this oneness, there are 5 qualities that a Sikh will then start to experience. And these are 5 qualities that are often spoken about a lot in our Sikh spiritual teachings, which are Sat, Santok, Daya, Nimrata, and Pyar, which is truth, contentment, compassion, humility, and love.
Okay, let's start with the first one then, truth.
Truth, it's so important to live in a manner where we are truthful, not just to one another, but to ourselves. And I think being someone who exemplifies truth is spending time in deep meditation, spending time reflecting on what we're motivated by, understanding who we are. And with that as our foundation, then we're so much in a better position to engage and connect with others.
And then on to contentment.
Contentment is such a powerful idea. And it's rooted in the idea that desire is a source of so much pain. Desire is something that has us running from one want to another want to another want. Desire is insatiable. Desire is a source of pain because there's no end to it. Contentment is the antithesis towards this desire, because we learn that in the moment, everything we need is within us. And that allows us to live with so much more joy, so much more happiness, so much more balance and peace.
Just on the point of contentment, I feel like there could be a confusion with being comfortable, which would lead to not wanting growth. So how do you, what's the belief around that in Sikhism?
This is how I understand it. Desire has us chasing end results, outcomes. But when you fall in love with the process, you are content in that struggle. So development and desire are two different things. I've always understood them as two different things. But when you truly commit yourself to development, you're not focused on the end result. You're focused on showing up every single day in that moment, becoming better every single day in that struggle, as opposed to just waiting for the tough times to go away and to get that goal that we've been striving to. So I think being process focused as opposed to outcome focused is a distinction between contentment and desire, between development and desire.
I love that. So on to the next one with compassion.
Compassion is so important in fostering that empathy and that sympathy with one another. If we're saying that we're all one, then a part of that is in the same way that we hope to love ourselves, to love others, because it's all the same in the end. And when we are truly compassionate, what that means is the injustices that others face, the tough times that others face, the pain, the sadness that others face is pain that we're facing. And that's why we're almost compelled spiritually when we seek this oneness to uplift and help those around us.
Humility. I guess it's on to similar point as compassion. What's the distinction? And just on humility.
Humility this is what, when I think of humility, this is the power of this idea. It's recognizing that we are just a speck of flesh on a piece of dust flying around a spark of fire in an infinite universe. We are not the center of the universe, but we are a part of a universe that is connected and is one. When we look at the world from that perspective, it's to understand that humility is something that allows us to fight our ego. It's one of the greatest tools to fight our ego. Attaining greatness is obtained through seeking oneness, because our ego can only take us so far. But when we understand that infinity is within us, then we're limitless. So being humble allows us to battle the ego, which the motivations of the ego can only take us so far, and allows us to truly absorb into this oneness that can, there's no limit to where it can take us. So a big part of this, and I'll add to this idea as well, it's like, and this is a distinction, and this is the idea of the Sikh spirituality, is that power does not lie in the mind, power lies in battling the mind. Because when we realize that our ego limits us, and that by connecting to our true nature, the infinity that is within us, that is larger than us and also within us, that's how we become our best selves. Our ego, in the Sikh spirituality, we say that the ego is compelled, it is founded upon the 5 thieves, which are lust, anger, attachment, greed, and egotistical pride. And when we think about these 5 thieves, they rob from us, right? Like lust robs from us control, and it's lust over things and people. Like this is when you want that thing so badly, you're lusting over things and individuals. It robs from us control. Anger robs from us peace. Greed robs from us contentment, because you're never satisfied when you're always seeking one desire to another's desire. Attachment robs from us freedom, because we're bound by these attachments. And egotistical pride robs from us humility. When we are able to battle the ego, when we're able to battle these 5 thieves of our spirituality, that's how we connect to a limitless possibility, because that's when we're connected to the infinity within us. So the reason why we're having this conversation, whereas every time I say let's battle the ego, let's find contentment, you're right, from your perspective, right? So you're like, well, how do you balance that with wanting to become a better person? In a Sikh perspective, it's when you battle the ego, these things will come naturally, because you start to embody that divinity, that sense of divinity, which is that connection between us. That's what we believe is divine, the connection between us. You exemplify that source, that true nature, which is something which is defined by truth, contentment, compassion, humility, and love. You become that individual as opposed to one who is bound and controlled by their ego. So you understand the distinction there? Like it's a different way of looking at things, right? Like it's saying that true development happens when we battle the ego. Then we want to become ready, because we understand that we're all connected. We have an obligation to help those around us. We then want to have Jardikala, with that mental mind state, you can achieve anything. Then you want to be in a position where you're seeking victory in every battlefield because you are ready, you're ever ready, and you have this amazing mindset of always being, happy in the face of adversity. You're now an ability to seek victory in every single battlefield. But it's rooted, everything comes back to this oneness, because that is what allows us to access infinity as opposed to being bound by our limited ego.
I really love that it does go back to the oneness. I think that's something that everybody can understand, like really can. I'm not too sure if I covered this about the 5 qualities that we spoke about, but I don't know if I asked you about love as the final quality. Just to get some more on it.
For sure, love is one of the most powerful forces in this earth and in this universe. And when we talk about the fact we're all connected, when we talk about the fact that injustice towards another is injustice that we all face, or pain towards another is a pain that we all face, it is born in the fact that when we are connected, that a part of that connection is that love that we start to share. And when you fill yourself with love, you don't let the trials and tribulations of life make you bitter or resentful or angry. You see the lesson in life. You see the joy in life. And with that as our foundation, we can start to love ourselves and love everyone around us.
And the last question that I think is rightly placed in this conversation actually is the end of this conversation, but the ultimate end of everybody is death. And the idea of death within Sikhism, I'd love to hear more about.
It's a really important idea, and it's a constant reminder in the Sikh spirituality where we honor this time on earth so powerfully. This is the greatest gift we've been given, being here in this human form. And our goal must be to understand this oneness, to connect to this oneness. And by connecting to this oneness, that's how we're able to connect to our true nature and express ourselves in the best way, shape, and form, to really serve and help those around us to the best extent. And there's a constant reminder that death is around the corner. Every single breath you take is a gift. Death is around the corner. So cherish this life, but beyond cherish it, use it. Use this time wisely. Commit yourself towards understanding this oneness, this connection that we all share. And by doing so, uplift those around us.
Just to expand on that one last point, is that your held belief that death is around the corner? Or is that a principle of Sikhism?
It is a constant theme. It is a part of the Sikh spirituality. There's constant reminders in our spiritual teachings of the ever presence of death, and how when we conquer this fear of death, that's how you can truly start to live a free life. That's how you can start truly expressing yourself in a manner which is to your best ability. When you understand that this is, for Sikhs, we describe this life, this illusion that we're experiencing, that we live, right? This illusion that you and I are separate. We describe it, it's described in our spiritual teachings as a play, as a drama. And when we realize that the true nature is timelessness, and that's what we're trying to connect with, then we no longer fear death. We understand it's just another step into this journey. And that allows us, I think, to live a freer life, a life of more joy, and a life of far more balance and peace. And that is a huge part of our spiritual goal. In connecting to oneness, we realize that we're infinite and that this body we have is just dirt. And that infinity is something that will fill us with joy and love. And that's why it's such a huge focus of our spirituality.
Love that. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I cannot thank you. It was amazing.
Enjoyed it?
I loved it.
I got some stuff to say.
Yeah, one last thing that I always do just for the full interview is where, like, on social media, I get to see you doing ice baths pretty much every single day. You put out a lot of great teachings on there. Is there anywhere else that people could find you or follow you? We'll link it all down in the description, and places you would direct people to go towards.
I'm on all major social media platforms. I'm Gurratan Singh on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and at Gurratan on TikTok. I'm also on YouTube, Gurratan Singh. You can check me out, and we can share more of these ideas together.
Thank you so much for watching the video. If you want to find out more from Gurratan, head to the link down below. He's an absolute amazing guy. His family are so beautiful. They're so welcoming. He welcomed me into his home. We had an ice bath. We did the sauna as well. And Gurratan has been nothing more than an absolute gentleman. He messaged me about social media and helping me out on social media. He calls to help out. He's a really, really wonderful guy. And we need to do something with Gurratan in the future. So if you want to give us suggestions, let me know. And head to the link down below to find out more about his social media and stuff, because it is really good stuff. Today's video was powered by Huel. Use code 10Mulligan with the link down below for a discount. You get $10 or £10 off using that code. And yeah, thank you to everyone who's been supporting us. The mulliganbrothers.com, the support that we've had on there using the code 2024 for buy one, get one free has been insane. We're still getting through all the orders. If you're having any issues with the orders, let us know. We do appreciate the support. It's what makes this possible. We have now got a location for a studio based out in the US. We've got one in London, and we are really hammering the content right now. So it's only because of you guys. Like, we want to go out there, and our mission is to inspire change. And with your support, we can take a full film production crew around the world to be able to do that. And it is expensive to do. And with your support, it's been made possible, and it's not lost on me. So thank you to everybody who supports us. We won't let you down. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed and productive day. And if you haven't already, hit the notification bell and the like button, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.